Good morning, class. Welcome to Drugs Brain Behavior, Spring 2021. My name is Dr. Eric Olson, and I will be your professor for the course. The best ways to contact me are by email and more preferably, the virtual office, which you can find on the homepage in our Canvas shell. I prefer that you post to the virtual office because then I can answer the question to the entire class and all the classmates will benefit from both your question and my answer. Class format is going to be very, regimented, very scheduled. Every Sunday by midnight, you will have to complete a quiz and then most likely oftentimes a discussion post or a response to your peers about some assigned content that I think will be very interesting. And there will also be a final exam, an essay-based final exam. For this, I have already given you, you can already find them in the course modules, every essay question that will appear on the final. Some of these will actually be there, but not all of them. And it is my recommendation that you go ahead and answer all of those questions, and then you can just copy and paste when it comes down to finals week. So again, every Sunday by midnight is when you should complete your quiz. If you need time accommodations, it's something I can deal with. But we do have a full week, to meet that deadline. So let's try to keep up with it on the weekly basis. So I have provided voiced over PowerPoints. Forgive me in advance. The first couple of voiced over PowerPoints are scratchy. I, do buy a microphone after the first couple and the audio quality improves tremendously. There are some YouTube videos as well of me that I'm eventually transitioning everything toward. But it takes a while to make those. So, bear with me with the voiced over PowerPoints. I still think they're quite good, especially once you get past the first two that are quite scratchy. To listen to the voiced over PowerPoints, you have to download the PowerPoint presentation from my Google Drive. There's not enough room on Canvas, so I put them all on my personal Google Drive. You can download them from there. They don't have viruses in there. They're clean. And, once you get past the first couple that are scratchy, the audio is quite good as well. And you also have to maximize the PowerPoint to hear the audio. The text that I use is Meyer and Quinzer. I'm still using the second edition, which you should be able to find quite cheaply online. In addition, if you look in the Canvas shell, I think you'll find that quite a few sections are already there. I highly recommend you look at that before, spending a whole bunch of money on a new book at the very least. Also note that I view the textbook in this class as supplement for you. I will quiz you 100% from my PowerPoints that are from my brain. I mean, I'm an expert in this area. So, I designed the PowerPoints of the pertinent information that I think you need to know. And if something isn't clear to you, then you should go to the textbook, rather than reading the textbook first. Like that wouldn't necessarily be a very efficient way to prepare for this class. Listen to my voiceover PowerPoints, try to teach the learning objectives out loud. And if you can respond and say the learning objectives out loud and teach them to the wall or your peer or a friend or your dog, you're going to do well on the quiz. There's going to be a lot of stuff in the book that isn't exactly the way that I see things or the way that I would teach it. So, I am an expert in this area. I've studied, how drugs affect behavior for almost 17, 18 years now. Especially if you start count as an undergrad, then it'd be near 20 years. But I started doing this research as an undergraduate. I, at one point thought I wanted to go to medical school, but realized I didn't like being around sick people much. And I started doing research and loved it. I love working with ideas, sort of more behind the scenes type things. And I started working with transgenic rodents and saw what would happen if you knock down a gene and how they respond differently to cocaine or alcohol were my first few studies. Then I went off to Wake Forest School of Medicine, where I earned my PhD studying IV drug self-administration, where we would give rats a catheter so they could press a lever and take intravenous injections of heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, et cetera, et cetera. While there, I also developed a novel way of assessing drug self-administration and changes in motivated behavior that is really the sort of the leading method used to this day to study changes in motivation to take drugs. I also started measuring how the brain changes in response to these different histories of drug self-administration, and then went on to do my postdoctoral work at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, where I primarily studied cannabinoids and how cannabinoids affect the brain and behavior. And I also did a guest researcher position at the National Institute on Drug Abuse. So, I know a lot about this topic and the dopamine systems in particular. This class will be divided into 3 parts. The first part will be an introduction to neuropharmacology. That tends to be the hardest part. So, study hard right at the beginning. You might need to really read the book when it comes to pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. And then I hope things will become a little easier to you. The second part of the class will focus on drugs of abuse, and the third part will focus on clinical pharmacology used in psychiatric medicine. Note that this is going to be largely a neuroscience-based class. We don't only just we don't sit around and just talk about what cocaine feels like. We talk about how cocaine acts on the brain, and then how that would lead to changes in behavior. That is, really what we do in this course. So, in addition to developing basic understandings of pharmacology, I want you to have a knowledge base of how different classes of abused and psychiatric drugs act on the brain. I also want you to exhibit critical thinking and oral communication skills and an understanding of research methods in neuroscience by evaluating the validity of scientific content on drugs presented by experts in the field. What I want to do there is provide you with several videos or research articles that really get at some controversial concepts. For these, I would like you to, basically debate these topics with your peers. There's no right or wrong answer to some of these things. For example, should psychedelics be used in the treatment of in psychiatric medicine as a treatment? Is cannabis something that causes psychiatric disorders, or is it basically medicine that should be used to treat psychiatric disorders? What's up with drug scheduling? I mean, cannabis is a Schedule 1 drug, cocaine is a Schedule 2 drug. How could we better schedule drugs of abuse? These sorts of things are what we will be discussing. You will be providing these discussions through the Flipgrid app. So in addition to providing a sense of community and allowing you to face people interactively in an asynchronous format, and this class is completely asynchronous, which I think is really quite great in that it provides ultimate flexibility and allows you to take this class around your work life and family life. And other classes, of course. I mean, you can do it on your time, but you still get to have these sort of face-to-face interactions with your classmates. Now, I also want to point out that I have this grand deal in the class. So, there are going to be 7 potential discussions to participate in. Technically, you only have to participate in 4 of those. So choose wisely, not only based on the ones that you're interested in, but also think about when life gets hectic. Maybe you have a wedding coming up. Maybe you have a crazy work week somewhere on the syllabus that you see a problem with. Maybe you just need a mental health week, and please take that mental health week. It's a pretty crazy time of the, in the history of the world. So, take the opportunity of skipping a discussion to accommodate your life and your mental health. That's the way I want you to think about the fact that you only have to do 4 out of 7. Thinking of the most interesting ones is also quite, important to consider, but think about yourself as well. And I also want you to complete all of the quizzes, but know that I do drop your lowest 3. And again, if there's this crazy week, I mean, if you take a 0 and just don't do one, it's not the end of the world. You can drop 3 if you really need that work, family, or your own mental health day. And if 70% of the class completes their FCQs at the end of the year, I will drop an additional grade. Canvas support is a good place to go if you're having issues with the actual Canvas. There's really very little I can do on that front. However, I, will respond very quickly to any issues that you will have, with my actual posting of materials within the shell. The quizzes, the weekly quizzes, always due by Sunday at midnight, are the bulk of the grade. You also need to participate in these discussion posts, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. And then the final exam, which again is completely open note and open book, and it's all essay based. The questions you get in advance, and what I want are good answers here, guys. Good answers, not like you would just scribble down through rote memory in a classroom. Like put a little effort into your responses in advance, and then you can just copy and paste at the end of the year there. So, again, the quizzes will occur at the end of each week. By Sunday, you must complete them by Sunday at midnight. You'll have one 15-minute attempt at each quiz. These are typically going to be multiple choice or fill in the blank or sometimes short answer. And the short answer will become more common as we progress through the semester. Let the learning objectives guide your studying. Again, if you can describe the learning objectives to your peers or a friend or the wall or your dog, you're going to do very well on the quiz. These are, again, open note, but know that these are going to be very tight timing. Like, there might be times that you're not going to make it through every question. You will not have time to look up all the answers. So, if you really want to make it through the quiz, you really need to be able to go ahead and be able to describe the learning objectives before you take it. Again, the final exam will be hopefully something that you can just copy and paste a bunch of essay questions for that you've already prepared. The essays are, there already, the questions. And for a perfect score, I expect a lot here. This is open note, open book. You have all the time, all semester to prepare your answers here. So if you really want a perfect score, I need really a perfect description of what was covered in class. And if you really want to go the extra yard, you can bring in some additional material, some additional interpretation that might make your answer really stand out to get a perfect score. I would say, an A+ might involve bringing in an additional research article or an additional perspective from a different class. An A- might be the perfect answer from the PowerPoints that I provided that would have been an A in the quiz. And then B would be, not quite perfect from the PowerPoint, and C would be, an average sort of short response to the PowerPoint material. You can see we have this very common weekly format throughout the class. Start every week by reviewing the PowerPoints that I provide, and end every week by taking the quiz and sometimes posting discussion material. So what is the deal with these discussions? So you'll be using an app called Flipgrid. You again have to complete 4 out of the 7 possible discussions. In your discussion post, there's no real law here, but think of it as like how you would have a discussion in the classroom. But, what is the author's argument? And all of these are controversial. There's no right or wrong answer. So do you agree with the author's conclusions and why? What was the basis of the author's conclusions? Why might their logic be flawed? And you might even consider, if you could actually follow up on their study or thoughts, how would you do so? And you might also comment on, whether or not you thought that this was an important concept to consider. So I would like you to respond to any 5 members in the class within 2 weeks. You can do this by following the instructions that are provided pretty clearly, I think, in the Canvas shell and then also here on the syllabus. And the way that the points will work is, I will give you a grade for your initial post, and then I will deduct points from that post if you are not responding to your peers. And also note that only people in the class can see your videos, so, you can feel free. I mean, like, you have academic freedom in this class to express your views, to express your opinions. Do so in a respectful manner, though. I will flag you if you say offensive, like things that are, racially insensitive, insensitive to someone's gender, for example. We don't want to go there. However, you are otherwise free to express your own opinions, and someone is going to be an advocate of using cannabis to treat various disorders. Someone's going to be an advocate of using psilocybin to treat disorders. Someone is going to think that that is just crazy. Like, why on earth would you do that? And there are reasons to support both ideas. Neither is wrong. This is exactly these sorts of discussions and debates that I think we should be encouraging in this class. So the actual 7 discussion topics are, and you should be able to click on these in your syllabus if you download it for links. First, you can review a proposal for drug scheduling by David Nutt. He was a leading psychiatrist in the UK before he lost his position politically for arguing that basically psilocybin and MDMA should be used to treat things like PTSD, and our alcohol is much more dangerous than these things. And alcohol, if anything, is what we should be very concerned about. Then I would like you to, another one that you can choose for your 4 out of 7 is this interesting analysis from a researcher at the University of Bordeaux in France, Serge Ahmed, who has been arguing for some time that, so while Nutt thinks that alcohol is worse than hallucinogens, Serge thinks that sugar is worse than cocaine. You might be interested in pursuing that line of logic and countering it or agreeing with it. Either is perfectly acceptable and encouraged. There's no right or wrong answer. Will psychiatric medicine be genetically tailored to individuals in the future? Particularly if you're interested in going on to medical school or pharmacy school, this one might be interesting to you. It's on pharmacogenomics. And I love this topic. It's sex differences. Social science and history might suggest that men are more susceptible to addiction than women. However, if you review the animal literature and biology, there's actually quite a bit of evidence to suggest that women and females might be more susceptible to addiction. And then if you really want to go complicated, there are additional, very just things that haven't been studied much at all regarding transgender populations. So, what role does biological sex, and then if you want to go there, gender, have in determining susceptibility to addiction? Does cannabis abuse increase the risk for psychiatric disease, or does it actually provide an excellent treatment for psychiatric disease? One could possibly even argue both from a developmental perspective. So that might be an interesting one for you. Should psychedelics be considered as pharmacotherapies? And in addition to this trip treatment, New Yorker piece, I include a nice little TED talk by Roland Griffiths at Johns Hopkins University. And finally, the opiate epidemic, what went wrong? And, in here, it's really easy to criticize big pharma. But I want you to really, consider this from multiple perspectives. I mean, if you were a doctor and you were managing patients that were in chronic pain, that, basically they are almost driven to suicide by the amount of pain that they're in, what are you going to do to treat their pain? It's a very, difficult issue. And what about patient freedom? It's a much more complicated than just yelling at big pharma, in my opinion, but, for you to consider. Here's how you post to Flipgrid. So very important, do not go to the actual Flipgrid app. Launch Flipgrid through Canvas. If you do not launch Flipgrid through Canvas, I will not see your post, which means I won't grade you initially, which will be stressful for both of us. So please launch a Flipgrid app through Canvas. And then to add a response, you just click on the green plus and click on the red record to record. And you can take a selfie if you wish, or add a funny emoji or whatever you like. And then you can submit and then respond to 5 of your peers. The threaded back and forth part doesn't work so well, admittedly, but it is one of the better tools out there for you to really build a sense of community and get some face-to-face interaction there. So, the topics really that we'll cover throughout every week are: first, we'll go over drug nomenclature and classification. Then in week 2, pharmacokinetics, arguably the most difficult topic of the class, unless you have a strong background in physiology and biology. Then part 3 is pharmacodynamics. Then a basic overview of neurobiology, which will be very important, and hopefully it will be a review for you from BioBasis. Then we'll spend a week talking about drug addiction before I go on to talk about catecholamines and cocaine. And I tend to get into history a little bit as well too. I find that the history and appreciation of drug history really helps you understand the legal status of how things are, and also the prevalence that through which different drugs are used in different societies. Then we'll get into psychostimulants, psychostimulants, and then briefly into the cannabis history, cannabis and endocannabinoids, opioids and opiates, anxiolytics. Then we'll go over to serotonin and various behavioral effects associated with serotonergic drugs, antidepressants, antipsychotics, and finally anticonvulsants. Then you have the finals week to hopefully copy and paste your prepared essay questions. So that is really all I have for you there. I'll end with a few fun notes if you actually made it this far. Good for you. In addition to being very interested in, drug abuse and addiction for many different reasons, I am a pharmacologist. I am a proponent of pharmacology in lots of different ways, shapes, and forms. I am not the Tom Cruise jump on a couch kind of guy. I, am married to Dr. Hamilton from the department, who you might know. We have 2 children. We were, competitors in grad school, actually. We challenge each other quite frequently on our addiction work. In addition to raising 2 kids, which is very busy now with school and lack of daycare and these sorts of things, I'm an avid Nuggets fan. I don't know so much about how I love our small ball lineup this year, but watch a lot of the Nuggets. I also, really enjoy music of all different kinds. I, listen to pretty much every genre of music, and I love going to the theater, or at least I used to. You know, for music, I am the odd one that I really like opera, whereas my wife does not. So, I'm the weird husband dragging the wife to see the opera, or going to see it by myself more commonly. But I also like to go see shows at Red Rocks. One of my favorite musicians that I would probably see there would be Bella Fleck, who I have seen for a long time. I brought my wife on one of our first dates to see Bella Fleck play. I've seen him many times. And then another band that I like right now is Run the Jewels. I've been listening to a lot of Run the Jewels recently, especially like when I work out and these sorts of things. So, yeah, I like many different genres of music from, I even like heavy metal. I've seen Slayer live, I like opera, heavy metal, hip hop, rock and roll, pretty much bluegrass, pretty much everything you could think of. And I especially like the fusion of music. And I mean, I think that this is, I like to wax poetically about multiculturalism here, especially from the context of both food and music, two things that I think multiculturalism has made tremendously better. But I mean, if you think about the Beatles, I mean, like what really, in my opinion, made the Beatles so amazing is their blending of music between like the East and the West. And classical composers did this before, like Debussy and Ravel really made their piano concertos stand out versus their contemporaries. And I don't think that you see any genre doing this more than hip hop right now. I mean, Run the Jewels is a good example of this, sort of fusing stuff with rock a little bit. Like Rage Against the Machine sort of influences in there a little bit. um, and really, I mean, the history of rock and roll and blues, in this country is a multicultural fusion of music, and I think the world is better for it. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Go Nuggets. Hopefully we start winning some games here and find some way to defend around the rim.